like I say, Zimbabwe, zombieism or zombies. Like I said, there's film of them too. Whether or not they were acting or not, eyes rolled back, basically zombie, like walking around, and pretty much their own people say, well, our tribal leader basically gives us the stuff to take every day, and pretty much he makes sure his for a while there he was making sure that all his people were so drugged up out of their mind that they didn't even know what day it was. Anyway, this was 1925 to 1950 or 1940 or so, or 18 something until something. Like I say, there's very much something missing as far as like my history of them because there's no document record of them basically. And pretty much my earliest memory or my earliest knowledge of them pretty much is when the British found them, and basically they possessed no language whatsoever other than, and not even that. They had no language. They alluded or tried to say that they did have a language and it did mean something. And there are some people with languages. I mean, there are insects and stuff like that. But basically, the variants in their language were so vast and so whatever that pretty much it's like 5 year olds going, you know, they had no, they were like cavemen, basically status. They may have had a culture at some point in time, but none. But there's no reference of it, or any of my memories. I have no memory of it, because, like I say, all the ruins are basically. They try and say that they had ruins and everything else, but they couldn't find anything. Everything that's there is basically Indian or or Arab. Like I said, the Arabs they were very good miners. They were very the Arabs are like I'm like yes Arabs I love you. You guys are great. The Arabs they had a great culture. They did. I forget exactly what it was. They were a sand tribe or something like that. Marauders kind of, but they weren't really marauders. They uh, the Arabs basically, or the Arabic people. Well, they're kind of Indian influenced, but they were a sand tribe or whatever. They were out there in the sand, and they used to. Well, they're one of those races that kind of snuggled up to the British, and the British helped them, and then the Arabs basically helped them. Most tribes or most groups, you meet them and you give them food and you give them education, and they just go, up. Where eventually they have their own cars, they have their own plants, they have their own plantations, they have their own food, they have their own everything. And some tribes go, Indians on the other hand, uh, well, they went up really high, and they're still pretty high. They've gone gambling. They found their own niche. And they've done really well. They did beads. I mean, if you look at the Indians, they've actually done a lot of stuff. Like I said, in the old days, I used to have them go out and do hunting for my other groups. So anyway, and the Indians they were taking care of my horses, and they also did a mine too. The Indians had a silver mine and a gold mine and stuff like that. They did a lot of mining, and they also did rail too. Um, like I say, the only black people that actually did do anything were basically the black people that helped out with the rails, and those were the black people that Zimbabwe or I had or we had liberated ourselves. And they actually ended up breaking loose and actually killing the people that were watching over them. So, and then stealing and then raping and then running away. So, at least I think that's the history. I don't know. Like I say, you'll have to talk to the British people because they were keeping track of it, or the Chinese. Like I said, um, they try and hide it, but pretty much, if you go back, you'll find, like I say, the Chinese were there, the Russians were around here. Everybody was in America, and everybody's been around each other for the last 3,000 years. So there's no real question. The only thing is that there's no documented record of or any photographs of the Zimbabweans or the Zimbabweans because they don't believe in that. They don't want to be photographed. They don't want any historical record. And usually, when someone doesn't want a historical record, it's because they're pretty much going to kill you. So, anyway, And anyway, I suppose eventually they'll start photoshopping and doing some other stuff to try and pretend like they had some great things, but they didn't. Anyway, I don't really know or care really. I mean, they could have had an event. You know, they try and say that they have advanced culture, or they're trying to go for advanced culture, but they're really not. Anyway, they've been around. I mean, we've been here a long time, so, and they've been around at least 500 years. And like I say, there used to be 240 tribes in Zimbabwe or around there, and now there's only like 5, 13 maybe, or something. And I'm not even sure if there are 240 tribes. I think it was actually well, the Zombieisms basically controlled all the other tribes through opium and drugs or threats. And so, like I say, the only people that have really been oppressing the black people are pretty much the black people and the people in Africa. That's it. So, it wasn't British, it wasn't German. It's themselves. So, anyway, and like I say, they supported JFK and some of the other people. And they just try to confuse everyone. So, anyway. But it's a little bit harder to confuse me and everything that I know, because it's like, well, I'm the creator and I'm the real Lucifer star, and you know, I pay people to know to know things. So, and I always like to know things. So, anyway. And you know, like I say, I built 800 galaxies and built my Titanic and built my Lusitania and have all my historic records and have all this history and smartphones and and everything else like that. And and you know, I mean, I have all this epicness that is the Lucifer White Star legacy, and all these star companies lying around and stars on the sidewalks, because there's actually 2 cities with stars on the sidewalks, and there is some little like cheesy stars, because I was doing a sidewalk and I was like, can we put stars in it? And then later on we were doing LA, and then I was like, hey, let's do some nice stars, and I had some people from the movies, and I was like, hey, let's put them in there. They've done a lot of movies. Let's go ahead and put some stars on the sidewalks. So they did like 13 of them, and then later on they did more. So that's how that got there. Anyway, yeah, there's lots of history things. I mean, I was this epic dude. So anyway, yeah, yeah, like Warsaw and all that. And I don't think it was. I don't think it was the Germans. I really don't, because you know, Warsaw was my city, and so was Germany. So I don't know why they would attack their own city. That doesn't make sense. Anyway, now the Yanks and the Africans and the Filipinos were just confused. They just had a bad leader. Like I say, I think I gave the Filipino people, like I say, I built Cuba, and I think I was giving that over to the Filipinos or something like that, because, well, they were kind of bad. So I had to put them on an island. And Colombia, or Cuba, really isn't, it's not a small island. I mean, it's a pretty big size island. So I gave them some other islands. You know, I try to make a space for everyone, but, you know, so. And I like Cubans. They're cool. Or, I mean, Filipinos. I mean, every race acts up at a certain time.